Welcome to Here's Why. My name is Jimmy Talbert, and I'm joined by my friend Dom Faussette, leadership
executive coach,
and leadership speaker.
There we go.
I've been saying it wrong all day, and I don't know why. I've introduced him a number of times.
Yes, more than enough. This is the first time you've really had this concern.
Yeah.
Are you anxious? Yeah. Is that why?
I'm a little bit nervous. What we're talking about today is actually different ways and strategies to help you feel less anxious. So you call it stress or worry. At the end of the day, when it comes to speaking in public, speaking on camera, doing sales presentations, being stressed and feeling anxious is a very real thing for a lot of people.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So wanted to start by talking about some sort of physical characteristics of what you can, or physical, would it be characteristics?
We can call them traits.
Yeah, traits that you can do to
external
help you
responses,
feel
external
less
things.
anxious. So Dom does a lot of public speaking.
I do now, yes.
Let's go through some things that you do to get ready, or to not feel nervous, or that you've seen work for you and your clients.
Let me share something with you guys that I don't even think I've ever told you. So I've stuttered since I was 5. Like, stuttered so bad that twice a week I'd have to go see a therapist while I was in class, right, in school. And a stutterer, right, they're just naturally anxious, like high levels of anxiety. Nobody tells you this in the 80s when you have it, but nowadays they put titles on everything. But what I learned in the space of growing from elementary school all the way through high school, learning how to speak, like I couldn't introduce myself, couldn't speak in front of the class, like reading in front of the class was horrible, didn't do plays, I just didn't talk. And a lot of it had to do with self-doubt, right? A lot of it had to do with a lack of confidence. And it wasn't until I joined the military and then became a cop and I learned how to talk. But I was K-9 in the military, so we're talking about speaking. And what helped me there was being able to command presence in a space that I was in through communicating and being in a relaxed space.
Okay.
So some things that a person can do and I think I'm answering your question, to get past the anxiety point is stop looking at it as trying to get past. If you acknowledge the fact that you're nervous about whatever the situation is, maybe take some deep breaths. That's what I used to have to do. Maybe start over, right? So when I say start over, imagine you're about to walk on stage, or you're about to go to a sales presentation, or you're at work delivering a white paper. It happens, and you have a bunch of executives in the room. You start to get nervous. Tell yourself, you know what? I'm nervous, and it's okay. Breathe. Don't envision your audience naked. Like, that's an old rule that does not work. It's like the older I get, the weirder the audience looks. Yeah. But be okay with being human, right? And humans stammer over words, do we not? I mean, I know I do often.
I do all the time.
Right. And
I did at the beginning of this.
You did, and we didn't edit that out, right? Nobody expects anybody to be perfect. So I'd say 3 things that you can do if you're stressed or anxious about a sales presentation like you mentioned, or even a webinar or a video. Breathe, count to 10, and then just tell yourself it's okay to be nervous. You don't have to be perfect. A couple quick tips.
Awesome. Some things that physically are also supposed to naturally help you feel less anxious is showing your palms. I don't know why exactly, but that's something that,
as an ex-cop, I've seen a lot of guys show their palms, and they look very nervous.
Different situation.
Oh, is it? Okay, fair enough.
In my opinion, yes. Yeah. But when you're talking, you show your palms, and that is probably because it's disarming.
It is.
And
it definitely
so
is.
that's supposed to help you feel less anxious, according to
your studies.
My studies.
His research.
My research. Also found things about exposing your throat. Now, I don't have much of a neck to work with.
And you've got the beard.
And I've got the beard, so there's not much throat.
Any exposure would be weird.
Yeah. So we're not gonna do that right now. But also, uncrossing your legs is also supposed to physically help your body just naturally. So these are things that you can do to if you're feeling anxious, you can do immediately, and they are supposed to help your body naturally be more relaxed
You know,
and feel less anxious.
This might sound weird. I'm not even suggesting that you try it. But when I first started professionally speaking, I would slam a Red Bull. And what's crazy is that increased level of energy moved me past from the space of being uncomfortable.
Makes sense.
I don't know why. I don't do that now. And again, I'm not encouraging a person to do that. But try it.
High energy.
Right? Yes. So, high energy.
And I could see that working both ways. One, high energy,
Right.
but I could also see people getting more nervous because their heart's racing and they're going. So,
right.
But that's definitely a good tip.
Yeah, it just worked for me.
What about replacing your filler words with just silence?
Bro. So we talked about this off camera. People are very uncomfortable being silent. Like that moment you say something and then you stop talking, but then you immediately start talking because the other person hasn't said anything. I think that's a very common response. You're in sales, you see it often.
Being comfortable with a little bit of weirdness,
yes,
or silence is a powerful tool.
It is very powerful, and it's powerful because most people cannot do it. Like I train speakers and coaches on how to sell their programs, and having the money conversation is where that silence is very powerful. Somebody asks you, hey Dom, how much is your course, or what's it cost a month to be coached by you? Give them the price and then shut up.
Yep.
Like it's practice with your spouse or your kids.
Yeah, I completely agree. And also, and this is something that we work with clients on all the time in the studio, where you have to tell them to pause to emphasize certain things and pause, take a breath, do things, because for one, it's a point where you have the opportunity to emphasize something that's important, for one.
Correct.
But then two, when you use filler words, you're interrupting your natural breathing pattern, which is also going to make you as well feel more and more anxious.
It does. And it also interrupts the person's thought pattern that you're speaking to.
Right.
How many times have you guys heard somebody ask you a question, you didn't immediately answer, and then they go into repeating the question or just over talking? We see that in sales a lot. But if you're the type of person that does that, understand that it makes the person that you're speaking to, they get lost in your translation because you're not translating anything but noise.
I mean, how many times has someone been trying to sell you something
Right.
and they just keep going? We used to call it info dumping, right?
That's exactly what that is.
And
great word, I'm gonna use that.
That's all you're doing. You're just dumping information as opposed to listening, as opposed to stopping and taking a step back for a minute and being comfortable with the silence.
And then if maybe you can't start there. Maybe a person can't just speak or state their purpose, state their mind, and then stop talking. If you're going to use a filler or move away from a filler, use something more intentional. For example, what are your thoughts? That's a good filler question. Have you considered this? That's a good filler question. But eventually you're gonna have to stop. What are your thoughts? Stop talking.
Absolutely. That you can do is to use reframed phrases, and this works in questions, especially if you're the nervous one. Someone asks you a question, you reframe it back in your answer because it gives you more time to think about it.
I got you. I'm tracking what you're laying down. Took me a second to catch on to that. Okay.
Also, using them in things that you say often when you're building your brand. So, for example, I'm sure when you describe yourself or your services to companies, I would imagine there's certain phrases that you say frequently.
Yes.
And that repetition.
They're brand phrases.
Yeah, helps. They're things that you're comfortable with. Give us some examples of those.
Command presence is a brand phrase of mine. So if I'm talking to a company about a product, I will say something to the effect of, the purpose of this product, as I teach it to or facilitate it to your staff, is to engage an increased level of command presence, which will then increase results in blah, blah, blah. That's how that works. And what I have found with branded phrases, not that I own that, but most people that I talk to haven't heard that. And it's a buzzword or a buzz phrase.
Right.
And it gets the person to think like, wow, I want my people to have command presence. I want some. Where can I order this command presence?
Where can I order this? I like that.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that was fun.
I like that too. Let's not make this weird for you guys and gals. Anyways, let's move forward.
So the next is just first accept. So a lot of time anxiety comes with different types of people or people who you're not used to being around, for example. And so accept that there's differences here.
I like
and
that.
make the change to maybe try to be around people. You were talking about that earlier when we were talking.
Off camera, we were talking about diversifying associations, right? And that allows you to be comfortable with people that, and I'm gonna use these 5 areas, don't act like you, look like you, think like you, believe like you, or speak like you. Look at it from this standpoint. Let's say you don't make a lot of money and you're uncomfortable around people that you think make a lot of money. I used to be uncomfortable walking into a Porsche or Ferrari dealership, right? Because I didn't feel that I belonged there. So when I was around people that had a lot of money, like I just didn't know how to be. But then I started hanging around, just seeing people as people, right? When you start seeing people just as people, and when you can mentally and emotionally remove the title, right? Remove everything outside of their heartbeat. You look at them as just a dude or a gal, and in my experience, conversations are much easier. What are your thoughts?
I couldn't agree more. Diversify associations. I like that. I like that term as well.
It works in the corporate space, huge. We'll write a $20,000 check for that. Come teach us, please, sir. Can you throw in some of your command presence? Yes, I will.
Diversify associations with a side of command presence.
With the size.
Would work.
Yes.
And then the last thing that I want to touch on is I guess not the last thing, but the last kind of subtopic here is just to stop depending. Your happiness needs to stop depending on what everyone else thinks, and this is something that will take time. This is not an overnight.
No, most of this isn't overnight, but this one especially. But go ahead. I didn't mean to.
Oh no, you're
cut you off.
You're absolutely fine. This one takes a long time, but the more you can. I don't want to say stop caring because that's not the right term, but the more your happiness is not contingent upon what others think.
I would go with that, and how they judge you, which goes back to what they think about. We just touched hands on camera. That was weird. What other people think about you, right? And you know what? I use this phrase. Somebody asked me one time on a podcast, Dom, do you care what people think about you? And it's not that I don't care what people think about me. I care more about what they think about themselves. And I say that because when a person can judge you, there's something about you that they probably need in their life, but their way of expressing it is oftentimes in a negative space, right? It's I look at it from a standpoint of start to get comfortable with who you are. And the only way, in my experience, to do that is to spend time by yourself. And we go back to speaking. Like on stage, you're by yourself.
Absolutely.
Oftentimes on camera, you're by yourself. So I didn't wake up one day and say, I'm going to be a great speaker. No, like it just happened. Yes, I low-key called myself a great speaker. You have to, I vacationed by myself, right? I took myself out to dinner. One is cheaper, way cheaper, and I got dessert. And then I just, you start doing fun stuff. Like, what do you do for fun?
I like to go golfing.
Okay, because you're a pretty confident dude. And for 2 guys under 6 feet tall, I mean, you would think, and balding, and we're both short, so you'd think we wouldn't be as confident as we are. But you are. So,
okay.
Where'd that come from? I think is where I was going with that.
I, in my opinion, I think that's just come from trying to become. I mean, I like to enjoy myself.
Okay, fair enough.
First of all, and so I won't enjoy myself if I'm uncomfortable, and I don't know. I don't know exactly how to answer that.
That makes sense because how many people put themselves in positions where they're uncomfortable just to appease a friend, just to appease a parent? And I'm talking grown people.
Right.
Like we both have friends that are in careers that they're in just because their parents thrust them into that.
Absolutely.
So learning to be okay with not appeasing really anybody, and look yourself in the mirror. One of the things I used to think was stupid was when people gave themselves affirmations, but I do them now, and it freaking works.
It really does. That is something, actually, now that you brought that up, that's something that a little story here, right? So I was in a job years ago, and I had a boss that really didn't like me.
You don't say.
He asked me to.
So he's a likable guy. But if I wasn't me, I don't think, like, we could rub each other the wrong way, but we don't. I digress. Go ahead. Sorry, sir.
Okay. And we were having some issues, but I knew that if I wanted to keep this job, I had to make this work. And I used to tell myself every day, and this sounds crazy, but I'd say it over, and I am so lucky to have Dan as a boss and a friend.
Put his name out there.
That's fine. He knows. We're friends now.
All right. Isn't that weird how that works?
Yeah, good friends. Turned out that he was a good boss, but just, we had some issues when we first met.
Okay. Fair enough.
It worked out. It worked out very well. And like I said, I consider him a good friend and a good boss, or he was a boss.
Right.
Now, so it definitely worked.
And that, when you go into a situation, and I'm going to use the phrase like open-minded, you were open-minded. Even though it was forced, and if the money wasn't there, probably wouldn't have been as open-minded.
That's not how I normally would have reacted to the situation.
But we all have situations where he's a gatekeeper. We go to work, there's a boss we don't like, but we have to tell ourselves, you know what? At the end of the day, I have to make this situation work out because my negative response to this impacts my family.
That's right.
Right? So look at the negative responses that you might have and ask yourself, okay, my negative response to my anxiety is impacting me in what areas? Right? Your health, oftentimes, your relationships, right? Your inability to connect. And if you're speaking in sales, you want to connect at all times.
Right.
As a speaker, you want to connect at all times. If you're doing videos, you want to connect at all times. So I would take Jimmy's. You had one affirmation, and you said it. Oh, you probably said it a couple hundred times.
Over and over and over every morning. So that was what I did, and it was just I had to get it in my head, and you can't do it once.
No,
I think
it's like 100 times at a minimum.
And I've used that with other things as well. You think of it as the self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, totally. It works,
and you believe it, and it works, but you got to start by sometimes tricking your mind a little bit.
You do.
Into believing it, right?
Another thing I used to do, I don't do it now, I used to be very uncomfortable walking into boardroom meetings. I don't know why. Like, as a cop, I could kick in doors, serve warrants, get shot at, no big deal.
But a boardroom
meeting, when you walk in, everybody's staring at you, I just got uncomfortable. So I would embody one of two people every single time. And when I say embody, like I would wear a suit like they would wear, I would wear a tie like they would wear, I would show up not myself just so I can get past the nervousness. I don't have to do that now, but, and there's a phrase, there's like a psychological phrase for that. I forgot the name of it, there's a couple books on it, but you might have to do that. Figure out somebody that you can emulate, that you're like, you know what, I want to be like them. And there's nothing wrong with emulating them for like 5 or 10 minutes until you're comfortable being you.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And you see that a lot where people will not mimic, that's the wrong word.
Yeah,
and
just emulate, embody.
Yeah, embody someone who they admire. I think that's actually very natural. I think that in a business setting, sometimes that it feels unnatural at first. But I think most things that change you do, I also I'm a firm believer that when you're uncomfortable is when you're in a position to grow.
Oh, definitely.
As a person.
Definitely. I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
And that's something that I again, years ago, different boss, he would move people. So it was a call center, right?
Right.
And he'd move people around all the time.
Yep.
And it drove me nuts. But his reasoning, and he was very open about it, I want you to be uncomfortable because that's the only way you're going to grow.
Exactly.
You sit in the same spot, you look at the same people and listen to the same people every day, you're not going to grow. And and it was absolutely true.
Growth takes place outside of the comfort zone.
No, absolutely. So Anything else that you'd like to add here as we're going?
You know, specific to anxiety, if there's an area specific to speaking or really anything audible that you are anxious about, oftentimes it goes to a person's limited physical interaction with other human beings. I don't think there's a such thing as public speaking. I think everybody speaks publicly. So if you remove titles from people, from self, from objectives, and then just start speaking to people, you'll find a level of comfort that'll take place in maybe the way that you sound or the way that you approach people, and comfortable with conversation. That's really the end result.
Yeah, and comfortable with silence, as we talked about.
And comfortable with silence.
So, thank you so much for watching today. And if you're still watching, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the like button. And I'm Jimmy Talbert.
Dom Faussette.
Signing off.
Ciao.